What's going on, guys? Welcome back to this year's Halloween Spooktacular. I hope you are enjoying it. I'm talking yet again about a franchise movie. Seems to be the common theme between last year and this year with the Halloween Spooktacular. And today I'm talking about Saw. This came out in 2004. It was a low budget horror movie. You could even classify it as a psychological thriller. It stars Carrie Elways, Tobin Bell, Lee Winnall, who also wrote it, and this was the directorial debut of James Wan. So, for a lot of people, this was the first time we got to see James Wan in action directing a horror movie. I had stayed away from the Saw movies for so long. I remember when this came out, I was 10, and I thought that it was probably going to be the grossest movie I had ever seen. When that 4K came out in 2021, I put my big boy pants on. I was 27 at that point, and I said, you know, maybe it is time to watch Saw because I had heard some really good things about this original Saw movie, and I bought the 4K, blind bought it without watching it, and I finally watched it that same year, and I remember thinking to myself, huh, that wasn't as gross as I was anticipating. There are still some scenes that are repulsive, for sure, and some scenes that do feel a little bit gross, and I'll talk about those in a minute. But Saw wasn't as torture pornish as I had anticipated. It doesn't really follow the pattern that the sequels follow. The problem I have with the Saw franchise is that each one kind of gets grosser and grosser as it goes along, but even then, I've seen all 10 of them. I've even seen Saw X. I didn't get around to reviewing Saw X last year, but I've seen them. I've seen them all, and it's like that type of gross where it's like, okay, it doesn't really like stick in your mind. It's kind of like Evil Dead for me, where it's like I can handle that type of gross, not Terrifier gross. I will never watch Terrifier. That just sounds grosser than Saw. Yeah, sure, I get in the Saw sequels, flesh is being ripped off, people's mouths are being ripped off, but somehow I can handle that. I don't know how. And I remember thinking when I was younger that that was all Saw was flesh getting ripped out, gross things happening. There's some gross shit in here. And by gross shit, I mean literal gross shit. The setup of Saw is that there's these two characters that awaken in this bathroom. It's this bathroom that's dilapidated. They are chained to pipes in this bathroom. And it's the grossest looking bathroom you will ever see. There's one character played by Lee Winnall. His name's Adam, and he has to reach into this toilet, and you just see him reach into that toilet and put his hand in a bunch of feces and shit and pull it out, and his hand looks really disgusting afterwards. It's gross shit like that that makes this original Saw repulsive. Also, they're in a dilapidated bathroom. This is a movie that is going to make you feel like you are dirty and grimy while watching it. After watching Saw, you're going to want to wash your hands. And I mean that literally. You're going to want to like take a shower, take a bath. Make sure that there's like no bugs crawling on you. Make sure that you're in a place that looks clean and sanitary because this shit in Saw ain't sanitary. And I think that that's what's the most disturbing part about Saw is that these characters, these two characters played by Lee Winnall and Carrie Elways, wake up in this dilapidated, grimy, dirty, run-down, disgusting looking bathroom that is insanitary, and they're literally chained to pipes. And the reason they're chained to pipes is because there's this serial killer named Jigsaw out there. He uses his accomplices to kidnap people, put them in a specific location, have them awaken, and figure out his games or his tests. And if they succeed, they can live. If they don't succeed, they die. That's the entire plot of Saw. That's the entire premise of these movies. People go to these movies to see gross out shit. But I watch this movie to watch gross out dilapidated bathrooms. And I think a lot of this movie feeling grimy and dirty relates to how low budget this movie is. And I think the low budget really helps in this movie's benefit. Because even when it starts to get a little over the top, I think the most gory it gets in terms of kills is when Lieutenant Singh runs into the shotgun trap and he gets shot in the head because you hear the impact but you don't actually see it. You just see the blood trickle down and his body fall to the floor. I would say either that or when Lawrence, played by Carrie Elways, in the infamous iconic sawing off the foot scene begins to saw off his own foot. Even on the unrated cut in the 4K, it wasn't as bad. I mean, when it first starts, where you see him starting to cut through the flesh of his foot, and his foot looks like it's starting to become detached. There's two shots where you see the blood and it starts to kind of become detached. But after that, he's still sawing after that. You don't even see him saw the rest of his foot off. I think that was a wise choice. I don't think anybody in 2004 was ready for that type of gore. If you imply it by showing brief shots of it that you don't linger on, then that's enough of a gross out gag for people to be like, ugh. And when it first happens, you're just like, ugh, please don't show. Okay, show more. Thank you. There's also some other disturbing scenes, like when Danny Glover, Singh, and the other cop, I think it's Dina Meyer, come across this crime scene with a guy who is entrenched in barbed wire and died in barbed wire. That reminds you a lot of something out of Silence of the Lambs or Zodiac, or when you learn about the backstory of Amanda and what she went through. That stuff is disturbing. And this movie really does up the ante despite being so low budget. And I just gotta say something about the low budgetness, because if you watch this movie on 4K, it's cleaned up. It looks a lot brighter. It looks a lot sharper. But on the Blu-ray, that cameraman was dirty. Clean your damn camera. Don't make sure there's no bugs or flies on that thing. Man, I don't want to see no dirt on the lens. Get it off. Even that even adds to the dirtiness of this movie. But Saw is also brilliant at not just being a movie that takes place in one location, because the first 20 minutes of the movie, it really starts off like that. You're trying to figure out why these characters are where they are, and the characters are trying to figure out why they're here too. And then at one point, Carrie Elways, his character, says something, and then it leads to a series of flashbacks that are interspersed with these two characters trying to escape this trap in this dilapidated bathroom with backstory flashbacks. And it doesn't feel like the movie is going to do anything like that for the first 20 minutes. It just feels like it's going to be this contained, isolated, kind of maybe psychological drama, maybe psychological horror that takes place in one location in this dilapidated bathroom. But I think that's why I love Saw, because movies like that can get boring after a while. They can feel a little bit pretentious. Saw actually has more going for it than the typical psychological horror movie that takes place in one location probably would, or at least the concept of what this movie's setting up in the first 20 minutes is trying to do. And I gotta appreciate Saw for that. I really like learning about the backstory of these characters, like who these characters are, like why are they in this game? That's the big mystery here. That John Kramer was, the Jigsaw Killer. He was a former patient of Carrie Elways' character Lawrence. Lawrence was having an affair. Adam was hired by Danny Glover's character because Danny Glover thought that Lawrence was actually the Jigsaw Killer when he's really not. The fact that Lawrence's wife and daughter are taken captive as well, and he has to kill Adam or else they'll be killed as well if he fails. There's so many moving parts to this plot that I think are really, really intriguing and interesting and present moral dilemmas for the characters here. And when you hear this, you're getting that classic Saw twist. This movie is full of a lot of twists and turns, and I think it's beneficial to present these in flashbacks rather than just having characters say them. We actually get to see events unfold that lead to why these characters are being here, and that leads to a lot of twists in the plot, a lot of unexpected turns in the plot. It does a very good job of keeping the suspense up and keeping the mystery up for the audience to try and figure out what exactly is going on with these characters and why they are where they are. If I have one issue with Saw, it's probably the dialogue. I think that the dialogue for this movie should have been focused on a little bit more because it is very poor dialogue. I'm like, nobody really talks like that anymore. Maybe in 2004 it was fine. I get that you're filming this as a low budget. You probably went through only maybe one or two drafts of the script, but I think the dialogue could have been tightened up a little bit. But for the rest of Saw, this is a very, very effective psychological horror movie that doesn't even feel like the movies that came after it. The movies that came after it, they are part of Saw. Like, you have the concept of these people who have wronged society and Jigsaw's eyes deserve to be put through these games and tests. You have all of that, but Saw became more about the traps and the kills rather than the psychological aspects of it. And whereas this one's more about the psychological aspects and less about the traps and the kills. You still have that here, but it's not as prominent as it is in the sequels, which make the sequels become a little bit more torture pornish and have a lot more gore to them. I'm going to give Saw an A-. I think it's a really effective horror film. I think it's a really effective psychological thriller film. I think that Saw really set the precedence for what you can do with low budget horror, and it hasn't really been replicated since in my mind. And it's a damn good movie with all the twists and turns and the plot twist at the end. Really good stuff. So, if you guys were to rank the Saw movies, let me know your ranking of the Saw movies in the comments below. I'll leave my link to my website in the description below as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I'll see you at the movies somewhere.